Just Baseball show for Wednesday, August 13th. We're giving you a Wednesday show because there was no Monday show, and that's entirely Arm's fault. Do you want to own up to that right now?
It was a little bit of Ellie's fault, if I'm going to be honest here.
You can't do that. You
I
can't
can't.
air out your girlfriend. Let's re-rack it. Just Baseball show on Wednesday, August 13th. Jack and Aram. As always, we are presented by the fine folks at BetMGM. No show on Monday. Aram, you're taking full ownership of this, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm taking full responsibility. Ellie had left her ID at the.
Nope, you
No.
can't do it. Re-rack it. Just Baseball show. Quinn Priester joins the program. Really excited for this one. The Brewers are one of the hottest teams in baseball, probably the hottest team in baseball, and one of the best teams in Major League Baseball. And Priester is a humongous part of that. I'm excited to chat there. We'll get you off the Ellie train here. How you doing? You good?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. We actually had a great weekend. Good travel, family wedding, great time. But yeah, getting back onto the schedule and everything. Very excited for this kind of home stretch here, and it's perfect timing to talk to Quinn because I mean it would be selling it short. I feel like to call the Brewers the best story in baseball right now. I feel like there's so many stories within the story. I think it's like the most chaptered story in baseball right now, which makes them so much fun. And Quinn is a really big part of that. So very excited about that. I think just the Major League Baseball landscape right now is in a really fun place where both New York teams are really faltering. Some, teams that you weren't expecting are doing well. You get the Astros reunion a little bit there with Bregman on the other side and Correa, of course, back home, and that whole aspect was really cool. There were just a lot of fun storylines over the weekend. I wish we could have rounded it up, but we'll be back next week, I think.
It's okay. Yeah, you guys will round it up. Travel day for me, but I think Peter's all good. Peter had a travel schedule thing going on. You had a travel thing going on, and then I was in the air. We had a getaway day from Atlanta to Cleveland. Off day in Cleveland was great, by the
Five
way. Thank
games
you
in
for asking.
4 days, right?
5 games in 4 days in Atlanta. That was the good stuff. And now we get ready for Logan Allen, Gavin Williams, and Tanner Bybee, and then go to Boston. And I think in Boston, it's going to be Bayo, Giolito, Crochet, or Giolito, Bayo, Crochet. So Fish have their work cut out for him
Yeah.
offensively. I will say I was just watching Red Sox Astros on Monday night. And the one thing that I wanted to hit on before we got to Quinn Priester, the reception for Correa hit a little bing harder than I thought it initially would. I was watching because it was Bregman's return to Houston, and that was really cool. And they had a pregame ceremony for Bregman, and he got a nice standing O, and he tipped his cap to the crowd before his first at bat. But then in the bottom of the first inning, Correa came up, and I wasn't expecting that place to be as alive as it was because he's just there moving forward now. He effectively signed a new 3-year deal with Houston, but man, they love that guy. He
Yeah.
is, along with Altuve, kind of the poster boy of the best era of Astros baseball.
Yeah, and I don't think fans would probably expected him to come back unless it was probably like a retirement deal, at the end. So, of course, a little bit of unfortunate circumstances for him to even for it even to be a possibility, right? He'd have to be underachieving. The Twins would have to want to get out from under the majority of that contract, but it's not like he was underachieving to the degree where you're saying, okay, this guy's cooked. As you know, he's dealing with several ailments, especially with the foot ankle situation that we remember from free agency and everything. But I think the idea of getting him back to where he's comfortable, where his routine is probably as clear cut and I could probably walk through it with his eyes closed and not playing shortstop, I think is going to be huge for him as well. I think this can give him that second life here, and I mean the numbers since he's gone there, I think would back that up. And then if you're feeling a little bit tired, you're dragging. I think being able to be home and have those fans behind you makes a little bit of a difference compared to, unfortunately, just underachieving team and what turned into sparse crowds in Minnesota. So I'm excited to see what he does. And really, they got him for nothing. They let him walk. They end up bringing him back with what, a third of his contract paid down.
Yeah.
It's kind of a best case scenario for the Astros. And I think he's exactly what this team needed as they go to try to make this playoff push, right? The one thing you would have said is, okay, well, Jordan's hurt. They don't have Bregman. They don't have Tucker. Like, who are the experienced guys on this team? Well, here's one of the best postseason performers of all time right back in the jersey that he did it with. And then, oh, by the way, Christian Javier was back and throwing in that game as well. So they've got some reinforcements back.
It didn't look awesome from Christian Javier. At least the Red Sox were ready for it, especially in the first inning, but it also didn't look awesome for Crochet. It was just kind
No.
of a weird, start. It was a weird game in general on Monday night in Houston, but yeah, man, like I just wonder what the Tetris is going to look like for Joe Espada next year with Correa playing third. And you mentioned, he goes away for a couple of years. They also found an answer at shortstop, and who
Yeah,
knows if it's the long-term
exactly.
answer. Like they backfilled with Pena, and you have Correa back into the fold. Based on the reporting and based on things that I've like heard, the Astros just came to Miami. It sounds like it'll be Correa at third, Pena at short, Paredes at second, Walker at first, and then you try the outfield thing with Altuve again next year, and you give him a whole offseason to prep for that. I don't know. It's interesting.
And you hope Cam Smith makes a leap. That team's in a fun spot. And I'll push back on you here. I think it started ugly. It was one of those games where you look at the final line score and you say, oh, wow, he actually salvaged it. It was pretty good. 5 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 5 Ks. And your first start back from TJ? That's not bad at all.
I guess the first impression soured on me a little bit
Yeah.
because that first inning was really rough to watch for
Yeah.
Javier. But then you know what? He got back in the mix, and I feel like if this guy is firing on all cylinders with that fastball, that can be a really dangerous four starter for you
Oh,
in the postseason when you get in there and it goes Fromber, Brown. Actually, it may be Javier game three.
yeah. Yeah, it might be.
So
It very much might be.
it'll be interesting. But all right, we're going to get to Brewers right hitter Quinn Priester in a moment. But before that, I want to tell you about our friends at Lids because Aram and Griffin Conine just finished up an exceptional event. Saw the recap was put together as well. That's awesome. But there are some great perks that come with using the promo code JB Lids. It's a free year of Access Pass premium membership with the purchase of what, a blaster box? What's the
Yeah,
difference between a
anything.
blaster box?
And it's in store, so you just say it to the cashier. Blaster box is going to be like the cheapest box, right? And that's where you'll get a handful of packs. No guaranteed auto, but sometimes the biggest hits come out of that. Now they just dropped this past week the mega boxes, which are kind of that middle ground where you get like a handful of guaranteed parallels, still no guaranteed auto, but better stuff in there and more packs. And then the hobby box is the most expensive, but is guaranteed auto, a lot more packs in there, all that good stuff. And any of the three, if you buy any of the three and you let them know JB Lids at the checkout, you get that free Access Pass membership for a year, which does come with, beyond the discounts, comes with a lot of cool stuff.
Interesting. Yeah. So with this Access Pass Premium has 20% off headwear, 10% off apparel, 10% off novelty, which is not trading cards, but it's anything else that fits into the novelty bucket. You get access to product giveaways, exclusive experiences, and early access to product drops. I know over All Star, what they had Ronald Acuna Jr.
Mm-hmm.
appear at the Lids in Buckhead, which is really cool, and they're continuing to run those back. So those are all the perks of Access Pass Premium, that membership that you get just when you drop the code JB Lids at checkout.
Yeah. Yep. It's all you got to do. And we're giving away a custom Just Baseball hat from the event that we made. It's Marlins with the Just Baseball logo on there. It's really cool. I kind of wish I could keep it, but I'm going to go and just make another one.
Yeah, nice.
That is in our video. If you just comment on our Instagram or on Twitter, you can win that hat as well.
Did it feel
But
like
yeah,
you were back at Build-A-Bear Workshop?
it was cool. It was actually cool. Just a lot more complex. It was kind of nuts seeing that machine in action. Like they let
Yeah,
me go behind and just film some of it. That's some crazy technology. To just take a logo on the computer and it just like hammers it in. It's nuts.
it's amazing. I'm fascinated by like the 3D printing and all that stuff, and I don't know. Tech is far beyond what I could ever compute with my simpleton brain. But that's what you got. Again, the promo code JB Lids when you buy a blaster box at Lids, and you get free access to Access Pass Premium. So you will hear from Brewers pitcher Quinn Priester in a moment. Before that, we'll take a quick break. Quinn Priester, the Milwaukee Brewers, joins us. Hey, what's in the water in Milwaukee, man? Can we get some of that? Is it for sale?
I'm not sure, man. I really am not, but we've been drinking a lot of it and having fun.
Dude, this has been such a joy to watch, and you have blossomed into. We were talking about it when you came to Miami. Not just one of the best ground ball pitchers in baseball, like the ground ball rate's what, like approaching 60%, but one of the best pitchers in baseball outright over the last 2 months, dude. I look at the record. I look at wins and losses, and nobody talks about wins and losses unless you're 0-10 or 10-0. And you were on a stretch like what was it, 12, 13 starts where you were 10-0. So simply like, do wins matter to you?
I think they do. I mean, it's certainly nowadays it's harder to control, and with the advanced analytics, it's not something guys look at. But I do think it matters. I mean, I think it matters of giving your team just the chance to win. Keep it close and keep the game within reach for the offense to one like stay motivated and be like, hey, we're blooping a blast away from either tying this game or starting to lead it. And I guess that's kind of the job that I've felt myself doing better is more just keeping us in the game and then allowing the hitters to keep that confidence and morale up. And you don't go through those stretches. I mean, very few people go through those stretches without the offense picking them up at times. And I know, and like when we came to Miami, the offense picked me up. 2 days ago, the offense had me back big time. um but it's just one of those things, it's if you're just you're giving the team a chance to win and getting them back in the dugout quick, with getting quick outs or ground balls, I think that does do something. It means something. I mean, I know on the grand scheme of things, the advanced analytics might argue it, but it is what it is.
Up until that start you mentioned where that's the good part about a hot team is they can pick you up because you'd been picking them up for the 15 starts prior, which you had a 2.51 ERA. Aside from ERA, because you mentioned like wins and things like that, of course that's going to be a positive. But for you measuring your performance, and I'm sure there's some nitty gritty that we may get into a little bit later, but just over that stretch, like are there some specific things that you're looking at to say like, hey, I'm going right, and this is going to continue to keep rolling in terms of like just feedback metrics, anything specific when you're going right to keep leaning into that?
I've started to go a little bit away from, looking at the iPad and TrackMan. It's certainly still really valuable, but what I've found a lot of the consistency this year is just executing. One of the things, there are a couple rough starts in May and April. Just the quality wasn't really great. And one of the things that, me and Chris Hook and Jim Henderson, who's like our pitching staff there, was like, hey, like, Corbin Burns used to do a thing where he would grade each outing. So like, did he hit his spot? Yes or no? Within, a ball or two of the area. Because at the end of the day, I think the average major league miss is 10 inches or something like that. But essentially what I'm looking at is my execution. How many times did I do what I wanted to do that day? Um, and I feel like usually when my score is like around like that 60% mark, it's usually a really good day. When it's a little bit lower in that 55%-ish area, it's not as good of a day. And then, you have your really good days, where it's 65%. And usually those are the ones where, it's 7 innings and just a few hits, just because the execution's there. And for me, that helps me stay away from trying to like shape my pitches. It keeps me away from trying to manipulate things to not only hit a spot, but make it break the right way. Like, when I'm out there, it keeps me in compete mode to just, hey, let's hit a spot, let's execute a pitch because, a really good down the way slider that isn't as great metrically is better than one that's great metrically that hangs down the middle. And so I've bought into that. I feel like it's really helped me like get back to just competing and only worrying about beating that hitter.
And when you're probably focusing, I would imagine, like in the off season of like with the metrics and stuff like that and maximizing, and then you just trust that, right? Once you get into the season, or maybe even in between in bullpens, like when do you then just check in on the metric? Because obviously you just look at the stuff, it's going to play. And as you've seen in real time, it's playing. But when are those like tune ups? Is it just during the off season? Is it every once in a while between starts? Like when do you then maybe check in on how the stuff is moving?
I think it is like in that bullpen session that's in between is we'll make sure everything's kind of where it needs to be. The number one thing early on the season was the cutter was my newest pitch this year. I threw it in the last game against or against Tampa with Boston last year, and then ended up refining it a bit in the off season, and it was still like I'm trying to get it always, in the negative horizontals. So it's actually crossing that line to cut. I know like perceived cut is like six, but that doesn't work for me. Like I need to get it across there, and that's one of the things that we kind of achieved through just cleaning some things up, like staying, on time with the body, and that was a huge emphasis when I got here to Milwaukee, is really just being on time and then, staying tight. I think one of the other things with that cutter, it's like, a lot of times it is physical cues rather than like an iPad telling me what's wrong. Like I can usually feel it. To where it's like the more I walk this arm away from the cutter, the more I get around it and the more it backs up. Versus the tighter I stay, I can stay through it. And I'm a supinator, so I'll get to that cut spin anyway. But sometimes, like when you're going back door and with it being a new pitch, like I want to like bring it back. But that's all part of the learning process and some of the things that these guys have really, really helped me, maximize. And then once we started to get more on time, those negatives came a lot more often. And then, it's more about just kind of staying in that same spot. And so we just have a couple cues that we tend to fall back on, a couple drills that we really, really like. Um and it honestly keeps my head out of the iPad a little bit, which I think for me going to the mound and competing has been huge.
I want to get into the transformation of the arsenal a little bit deeper in a moment, but I do want to go back to this like grading criteria. So you said Corbin Burns used to do this with the Brewers pitching group where he would grade, and I mean it's a game built on failure, right? Like Hall of Fame hitters, we hear all about that offensively. Hall of Fame hitters are failing, 6 out of 10 times they're not getting on base. But it feels like that scoring criteria that you mentioned, like a 60% is a good start. That kind of feels like a grading criteria built on failure. How comfortable are you with like failure of, oh, I didn't hit my spot within, 5, 6 inches?
I mean, I'm always trying to execute. So like I guess I'm not like going back and being like, dang, that's an okay miss. Like but I do think there is sometimes like some benefits of like, hey, like I've had it where it's like I'm trying to go down away with the sinker and then it runs inside and the guy's super late on it when maybe he's on time for that one down there. And it's like, well, it's so variable where maybe if I execute that spot, he's actually on it and gets a barrel. And so you get information from some of your misses too. Uh and so like there's been a part of me where it's like, I wonder even if I executed like 80, 90%, if the hitters would just be able to think with me and just be like, okay, if he's doing everything he wants, I know this is where this is going to be, and that's where that's going to be. And so that little bit of variability can almost, and I'm not, this is just pure me just thinking through it, is like that little bit of not doing what you're trying to do can kind of help at times where it's like, and then you just kind of have to sell it, where it's sometimes like I'll get pissed and I miss inside, and then that gives the hitter information like, oh, I wasn't trying to go there. And so I've had to do a little bit of like, if I miss and it's a strike, like act like we were trying to do that. And then keep moving on. And so certainly I want to have a game where I am 100%. It's never going to happen. But there's part of me that kind of thinks like, well, like maybe that 60, 65% is a sweet spot to where the times I don't execute exactly right, like it kind of is interference for the hitter too. But that's pure like that. I have nothing to back that up.
The audience can already tell that you're a really smart, thoughtful pitcher here, and I imagine that that can sometimes work against you. It's an asset most of the
Yeah.
time, but when you change organizations, and two organizations that definitely have their thoughts, are very smart when it comes to pitching, with the Red Sox, and then you go over to the Brewers as well. I'm sure they had their own philosophies, thought process, all of those different things as to how Quinn Priester can be the best version of himself, and it's not that one may be right or one might be wrong. It might just look different and both could be successful. But what was that process like for you? Because again, you're throwing the ball well. Clearly, multiple teams were really interested in bringing you in because they felt like you had this template that they could build on and help you maximize. And at the same time, though, you got to adjust to that now twice. Obviously, it's working out really well now with the Brewers,
Mhm.
and there were a lot of positive signs, with the way you were throwing the ball in Boston. Was there a shift philosophically for you that you had to adjust to? It seems like the Arsenal didn't change too much, but what was that all like for you in terms of just bouncing around a little bit and being a guy that likes to soak in this information. But as you mentioned, also, you don't want to overload yourself either.
Yeah, no doubt. That has been a problem with like I love to think, I love to learn like through the game and all this stuff to where sometimes like on the mound it can get into my head and I can start to like be a little bit like perfect. Like, oh, this has to be here and this has to be there. And that's not necessarily the case. I think one of the things Boston like really helped me out with in terms of like my process was this, they attack things at a month to month basis. So, I got there and said, "Hey, this is what we want to achieve over the next month. And we're going to hammer this for a month straight." And, we're not looking for results in start one or start two, but like we're going to slowly want to see things implemented. And I feel like there was a little bit of pressure taken off of me there where it was like, oh man, like you're giving me like a month to achieve something. And like that feels very achievable. Like we can go, start to start, and just make little increments and get better. And I feel like that kind of helped my process in terms of like this long term, like looking at it as a body of work rather than like one start at a time, like trying to find the quick fix that's gonna, make it perfect or whatever. And I feel like that was a great start. And then some of the things where Boston helped me get a little bit tighter, kind of like what I was talking about with the cutter, like that tight feeling kind of brought back some velocity that, I know when Jack was in Indy with us, like, a lot of games I was 91 to 93 and, really kind of fighting for every bit of velo I could. And then, there was just a couple changes, staying tighter with the arm with Boston. And then, there was just a little bit of like a quarter turn, I guess, but it just kind of got to it more naturally. And I saw the velo start to come back without, the weight gain that I went through in the off season and all this stuff. And so it was really encouraging and that like kind of fed a lot of my confidence. And then going into the off season, I felt like it was like, oh, we can block this off month to month. Like, let's not just try and make a quick fix every day. And there's a lot of times I got caught like in the loops of watching social media and seeing different videos online, like, oh, this guy's throwing 102. And it's like, oh, I need to try that. And it's like, I can't, it's not me. Like, I'm not that guy. It works for him. It's probably not going to work for me. And I feel like I mean, Boston helped me a ton in that way. Um, and yeah, it's just, and then I feel like when that started to happen, the execution started to go up because I feel like the confidence started to climb and then I was able to like pitch and do the things that I wanted to and then the confidence just kind of kept coming.
I want to get back to the weight gain in a moment, but from a
Mhm.
human element, dude, like you're a Chicagoland area native. You live about an hour and a half from where you currently are in Milwaukee right now. And you went from shuttling back and forth with Pittsburgh, trying to figure out the optimal mix, to going to Boston and probably spending more time in Worcester. And you don't have to say, we'll say it for you, like spending more time in Worcester than you probably should have. You should have been in Boston for a while. And then you go to Milwaukee and it's like, okay, you're here. You're close to home and you're a huge part of what we're trying to do. From the human aspect, like how much fun has this stretch of baseball with the Milwaukee Brewers been for you?
I mean, no exaggeration. I think it's the most fun I've ever had playing baseball. Like the guys in the clubhouse, are just. I mean, it's hard not to be, having fun with the way we've been playing. But just the guys we have in the clubhouse, all around the room, everybody's, close. Everybody's got some type of handshake with somebody, and it sounds dumb, but it's like those things are like it's kind of fun. Like you look, you're right before the anthem. It's like, where are my guys? Like, who am I? Where, like, what handshake, whatever. And um, it's just and everybody's so bought in every single night. It's just a really fun. And then the wins obviously make it a lot of fun. Um, I just feel like that also creates this a little bit like looseness that, everyone is, if and it's kind of like if I don't have a great day today, I know we've got 9 other guys, 10 other guys who are ready to come in and pick me up. And it's been that constant, like if the hitters didn't have it, the pitchers are going to pick us up. If I don't have it on Sunday, the hitters pick us up and DL Hall picks me up. Like and all these things. And I feel like that type of team baseball, everyone is just really fighting for each other, which is a really cool thing. And it's a ton of fun, man. Just we're trying to keep it going, as long as we can.
Yeah, I want to get back to on the mound, and you mentioned the weight gain, and what
Mhm.
people I feel like don't appreciate about you is like just how physical you are. Like you put
Yeah.
in the work, and we were talking about Cressy before we even hit the record button. I mean, you have transformed yourself into an intimidating presence on the mound that is just rolling ground balls at will. How much do you prioritize, the physical improvement week by week, month by month over the course of a season and in the off season?
A ton. Like and I love it. So like I feel like that goes back to I've like played football for all 4 years in high school, and I never like lifted for baseball in first couple of years of high school. So for me, like where I learned how to be in the weight room was with the like high school football program, and like it was always such a competitive environment. And so like it almost became its own sport, like of like, hey, I'm trying to outlift, this guy, and I'm trying to be the starting quarterback or whatever. And then that just kind of led into who I kind of am now, and I think it's huge for me. I see it as a huge piece for keeping myself healthy. Like I'm a huge believer in like the strong things don't break, like now that comes with being mobile and all this stuff. It's important to not get stiff, but like I really believe that, if I can keep myself strong, make sure I'm in the weight room twice a week before start or in between starts, and maybe if I have time, like just to do those little things, like they all matter. And then also like pitching's a max effort thing. Like in the weight room, I'm thinking like, hey man, like if I'm doing max effort things out there, I want to be working at a max effort, whether it's lighter weight, during the season, just to make sure we're not, getting super sore, not being able to recover. But the thought process is like, I'm not going to take this at 50% and then go out and expect to be great at 100% on the mound. And so like I see it as like keeping the central nervous system like going at that level, and those things, and then yeah, I just find a ton of confidence in it. I always like people don't get to the big leagues by accident. I don't want it to look like, I got there by accident. I want to look like, it's sometimes, you look at a guy and it's like, man, he's had to work for that. And that's to me is really, really cool.
What I love about the Brewers staff is you got players, pitchers specifically, like all into the spectrum. And you talk about executing. I just watched Jose Quintana put on another masterclass of execution. But then you also have a guy like Jacob Mizorowski who could, as long as it's within the realm of the strike zone, he's gonna succeed because no one's touching that. I want to start with Quintana because that was a guy that we talked about on the show. Just couldn't believe that more teams weren't lining up to take this guy and sign him to a 1 year deal. And once the Brewers did, there were reports that the clubhouse was fired up about it and felt good about what he could bring in and kind of help push this staff across to another level. What's it been like watching a 36-year-old, 13-year vet lefty like that just execute his way to continued success? Like it has to be pretty. You talk about the 102s on social and everything you
Yeah.
see. This has got to be pretty like inspiring as well to just see a guy at 36, sitting 90 and just continuing to be as consistent as anyone.
Yeah, no doubt. He's an awesome leader in our clubhouse. It's awesome to watch him go about his work and how intentional to the details he is, and how sharp and crisp his throwing programs and bullpens and all those things are, um and to be able to do what he's doing for us right now. I remember I got with the team in early April, and Q was rehabbing something from spring training, and then his first start against Arizona was like 7 innings, excuse me, 7 innings shutout on like 80 pitches or something, like straight out of pitching out of the AZL, just tore up a really, really great lineup in the Diamondbacks. Um, and it was like, man, this guy's still got he's still got it, man. And it's just been super, super fun to watch, and be able to talk about, things in the dugout with him, and certainly like just being able to watch, like I said, he leads by example so well, and to be able to still do it at the level he's doing it, I think that's what we all want for our careers, because there was a time where, he was a mid to high 90s guy, and was blowing people's doors off, and now he's blowing people's doors off with his, 90-91, executing the front hip, executing the back door, four up, change ups. It's awesome to watch.
Uh, Mizorowski's blowing doors off. And before we get into Mizorowski and the intricacies of him, did you know what was happening with the Charizard card? Like, I don't know anything about Pokemon cards and all that. Did you have any clue?
So I was supposed to drive him home, and then I was like, "Hey, man, like, my fiance was picking us up." I was like, "Hey, like, she's here, you ready to go?" He's like, "Oh, I gotta stay now." And I was like, "All right, like, sounds good." And then I left, and then I see on socials that he pulls this Charizard, and I was like, "That's why I had to stay." And I was like, "I respect it. That's awesome." He loves that stuff, man. And I know him, McGill, even I think, there's a bunch of guys in that clubhouse who freaking love, collecting Pokemon cards that you'd never think about, man. It's funny. I've never gotten into it. I told them a story like when I was in middle school. I left all my favorite Pokemon cards in my pocket. My mom washed them all, and that was the end of my collecting because I had all these like the shiny ones and whatever that were now just completely useless because they had been through the wash. And that was when my love for that stopped. And so, but it is fun to watch these guys, get so fired up about it. I wasn't in the clubhouse when he made that poll. I think that's literally like a $20,000 card or something. I could be wrong. Don't fact check me, but like it's ridiculous, man. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's the guy can't miss.
That's crazy. He can't miss right now, and he
Yeah.
is truly ridiculous. What about him jumps out to you?
It's just like the whippy extension, plus it's 102. Like, and then everything's just on top of you. Like he's throwing it from the grass. It's super like I just feel like he's super closed off, and it's just I mean, if you're not on time with the fastball, I mean, it's going to be by you before you can even think. And then, the other stuff is really legit. Like, I think, he's done really well with the changeup. The curveball gets down, it's stupid good. And then the slider at 98 is like the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And so I'm really excited to, happy he's getting his ankle or shin or whatever, back to 100% because, we're excited to have him back on the mound, and it's just awesome to watch.
I got to ask just another guy on your staff. We were talking about before we hit record, like the Brewers are the best story in baseball because they have so many stories within the story right now. And another
Mhm.
one that I've really enjoyed to just follow is Brandon Woodruff. Usually you
Yeah.
have those shoulder issues, shoulder surgery. You start to wonder what it's going to look like when a guy comes back. Also, a guy that was blowing doors off at the upper 90s, and but now just executing as well as anybody in that start against the Marlins. I think it was his first one back that Jack was on the call for. We were
Yes.
texting back and forth like, holy shit, this guy is dotting. Uh, that has had to be pretty cool too to just see him come back. Everybody probably didn't quite know what they were getting. I'm sure cautiously optimistic. And then to get this, I mean, that had to be a shot in the arm for the team as well.
Yeah, I mean, when we came home and he made his first start at home against the Nationals, I mean, when they announced his name as a starting pitcher, 10 minutes before the game or whatever it was, the crowd reaction is after not pitching for 2 years to have, everybody in Milwaukee just amped up to watch, Woody pitch. It gave me chills, man. Like he's done everything right in terms of being just a great role model for the people and younger baseball players in Milwaukee and really everywhere that watches him and then for him to come back after the setbacks that he had, it just shows you how tough of a guy and how relentless that guy is and how much he loves the game. And I think when you're all those things, the confidence doesn't really waver when when you have the body of work that he's had in the major leagues, and then let alone he's got a walk or a playoff homer under his belt. Like I would feel like the man every single day too. And for him to come back and do what he did, it's awesome to watch. Like when that glove goes up in front of his face, it's as intense as it gets. And yeah, like you said, it's as much as he does have that overpowering ride fastball, the sinker that's being backdoored and thrown in, and then now the changeup that gets under. It's just, I mean, man, he pitches, and I mean, it's again all these guys that we have. It's just like you said, we have so many really great stories, but just really get great individuals. So you just can't help but root for everybody to do the best.
Quinn, couple more from me. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't ask about getting away from the four seam and going to the sinker because obviously that has been the transformation to watch. I think around pitching right now because we mentioned it over the last couple of months. You've been one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball, and it's because you're rolling grounders at will. What was the process like getting away from a four seamer that you had probably been throwing your entire life and going to a sinker effectively full time with the heater?
Yeah, so a lot easier than you would think because I knew my four seam. There was times where like I did not want to throw it, man, and there's times where I've been told, hey, like we're not gonna throw sinkers to left-handed hitters. Like it just follows the bat path. They're gonna be able to do whatever. And so for a period of time, I don't think I threw very many sinkers to lefties in Indianapolis. And so in Boston, I think after my second or third start, he ended up saying, "Hey, like we we don't like we think your four seam is worse against righties and lefties." And I was like, "Okay." And they're like, "We're just gonna throw the sinker. Like we're just gonna throw the sinker." And then, the next outing, went out, had a lot of success, and I was like, man, like why haven't I been doing this? Like why is a ground ball out to a lefty a bad thing? Like, and that was my thing. It's like maybe we're not getting swing and miss on this pitch, but they're not barreling it. Like they're not barreling consistently. The only time is when I'm leaving it up in the zone, which is a controllable thing. Like that's we can work on this. And then so it was like, man, like maybe a weak ground ball to second base isn't as good as a strikeout. But why is it not? Like, why is me getting that lefty out in one pitch and getting onto my righties who I, have a better chance to strike out or whatever? Why is that a bad thing? And then once that kind of flipped, it was like, man, like I don't know why I haven't been trying to pitch to this strength of mine to where it's, like you said, I really find, confidence in just getting guys to put the ball on the ground. And now sometimes they squeak through and that's part of it. That's part of why, our offense has been so good is we put the ball in play. Um, but ultimately, like once I started to really dive into that piece, I felt like I started to be able, oh, now I can sequence the slider off of it in this way better to a lefty. And now I can, certainly would love to start bringing the changeup back as we start to get feel for it again, because that's going to be a weapon in the future for when now I can, pull the parachute off of this sinker down the way that I've been executing so well. And I think ultimately that change it hold just even in my hand holding that sinker like I just feel more confident, and so I think that was also a shift too that goes completely under the radar to where it's like the conviction I have with that pitch versus the four seam that I was just hoping that it's like I'm like just foul it off please, like because now I can throw a curveball, because I know you're not going to swing and miss at it. I mean, that was huge. And then we ended up just starting to go to that cutter later in the season with the Red Sox too, just to as like, hey, let's see if this works, and started to work.
Here's the crazy thing. This year, lefties against your sinker are hitting 226 with a 677 OPS. So it's actually playing even better against
Yeah,
lefties this year. So I imagine that's got to feel really good. And then on top of that, you have an incredible defense behind you, especially up the
yeah,
middle with Ortiz and Terang. And then, of course, even if they do get in the air, especially when Perkins is healthy, I feel like anything that's on the grass out there it could potentially be caught. But how much confidence did that also give you to lean into the sinker as well, too, being that you look behind you and you know that you've got guys that can cover, I mean, as much ground as possible.
it was a huge message when I got traded here. So like it was like, hey man, like this team won a Gold Glove. You're right, like, and I was like, oh yeah, they did. And then it was like that guy at second base is platinum. I mean, the defense Joey's been playing this year is like it's incredible to watch. Like every single night he's doing something where we're losing our minds. Like, holy cow, how did Joey do it again? And then Durbin, man, Durbin and Siegs have played awesome at third base. Since Siegs came up, he's started to hit a little bit more against the righties, and like every time I know like he's been making plays and doing the right things. And so it is top down. And then, when I do get the fly balls, like you said, Perk's out there, Sal's a Gold Glover out and right, and Collins has just been phenomenal. Like there's really no holes, and Yelich, as he's getting a couple more, reps out there, it's a Gold Glove too. And so it's it's really fun, man. And I didn't even talk about Williams. Williams incredible behind the plate. He calls an awesome game. I mean, it really is. I just have a ton of confidence that, like, hey, if we don't get this ground ball, we're gonna get the next two, and even if we don't get this single, the next ground ball is going to be two outs, just because that's how our defense plays, and it's been awesome. And I think that's been a huge reason I've had the success I've had, because I do put the ball on the ground and get the ball in play. We just have the guys who make plays, and I trust them, if even if one doesn't go perfect, like, hey, we're gonna get the next one. And that's just what it's been.
Quinn Priester, this has been awesome. Last one from me. We talked, I think the last interview we did for Just Baseball, I asked you what your fascination was. What's up, doggy? I asked you what your fascination was at the time because I had heard you were a guy of fascinations, and you said really into dinosaurs right now, and you were crushing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like you were like, I'm really into dinosaurs right now. Do you have a current fascination? Like, are you down a rabbit hole or something? Aliens was one of them too. I remember.
Oh man, yeah, that was an indie, the dinosaurs thing, because me and my buddies like got big into this into playing Ark, the video game, and so that was pretty fun. That's definitely gone away. I've been like huge into just like military aviation recently. Like I really want to get a flight simulator that has like this DCS. And it's like you can pretty much fly around the F-18, do carrier landings and takeoffs. One of my buddies has one actually in shoot, what's it? Bonita Springs, I
Yeah.
think, is down there, and so he's a pilot for Delta. His name's Kyle. So he's like, hey man, like come check this out. And I'm flying around the F-18 doing carrier landings, like full VR. And so right now that's kind of on my mind, where it's like, oh man, how am I gonna get this? Obviously it's gonna be an off-season thing, but learning about that type of thing, and then the biggest thing I want to do is like just get in there, fly around some like World War II stuff, like P-51s and Spitfires and all that stuff. So I think that's been the constant for this year. That's been like the constant thing. I'm always watching videos on it, and been having fun with that.
It's so cool.
There was something about the dinos to to World War II planes that got me there. But I was gonna ask it, my last question was just gonna be totally off the mark of what we were just talking about. But I was just curious here from a pitcher's perspective. If you had to face one guy on your, let me rephrase this. Who's the one guy on your staff that you would not want to face if you had to get in the box besides Jacob Mizrowski? You got to get a knock, or you got to put the ball in play at
Ashby.
least.
Oh, like I've no, oh, like I wouldn't want to face
You
is
wouldn't.
is
Yeah. You need to put the ball in play. You can eliminate two guys. One, I'm eliminating Mizrowski for you. Who would be the next guy that you wouldn't want to face if you had to put bat on ball?
mm, it's oh my goodness. I feel like Uribe or McGill. Like Uribe or McGill's, like their stuff is super, super overpowering. The sinker coming into me, like I wouldn't swing against Uribe. Like I feel like I'd at least feel a little bit safer with Trevor knowing the ball's going up. Now I know I'm not gonna hit it, but with the ball coming into me, like I don't even know if I could get a swing off against Uribe, and then he's got like 10 plus on the slider at 90. And so I think that thing disappears. It's gonna say Ashby's sinker's super down. His curveball start. I mean, it'll come down from the sky, from the top rope, and just grab. And hey, there's a ton of guys that would just be so uncomfortable to face. I would go Uribe, just because I feel like the sinker coming into me would be so uncomfortable, and then I would just never touch the slider. And then I would just hope, try and like literally tomahawk McGill if that was a chance. But to be honest, like I'm not. I'm walking back to the dugout, not I'm leaving the bat on my shoulder.
Man, and good thing they're teammates, dude. Quinn
Yeah,
Priester, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been awesome.
appreciate it, guys. Yeah, this has been fun.